Elizabeth Warren releases DNA test reportedly showing 0.1 to 1.6% native ancestry. Yes, this girl is so white she could actually run as a white supremacist. But don't worry, she's still Indian to like a small slither of her DNA, like the smallest that you could possibly get. But we'll jump into the story. We'll break it all down. We got about 6 or 8 articles on this. So yeah, strap in. We'll give you all the facts on this sort of stuff. But just to debunk a little bit of fake news going around, people are claiming that she is 99.991. That's actually inaccurate. It's actually 99.91. There's no extra 9 at the end there. Look, at this point, I wouldn't even be considered comfortable claiming I was a native Indian at this stage. But just to correct the record, it's not 99.99, it's 99.91. Okay, let's jump into the story and let's keep going. Senator Elizabeth Warren has declared herself vindicated for decades-long claim to be Cherokee, thanks to a DNA test she ordered in response to taunts from President Donald Trump, in another signal that the former professor is gearing up for a 2020 presidential run. According to Warren's own DNA tests, she has at best 1/64th Native American ancestry, but could be as low as 1 in a 1024 percentage-wise. She can claim somewhere between 0.1% to 1.56% native lineage. The minimum requirements to claim membership in the most Native American tribes range from about 1/8, which is about 12.5%, to half, which is around 50%. A few tribes have a minimum requirement of 1/16 or 6%. So just to reiterate that, even with the most of the Native American tribes, even taking in the minimum requirements of the sum of the tribes, she still would not qualify. Just to say that. Now, the Native Americans aren't real big on DNA testing and yada yada yada, but just using their genetics as a sample, she wouldn't qualify for that. But let's keep going. The Boston Globe, a newspaper that has spent years trying to protect Warren on this issue and has already had to issue a correction on the piece for overstating Warren's Indian ancestry, broke the details of Warren's DNA test analysis Monday morning. The article's author, Annie Linsky, similarly provided cover for Warren's past in September with a story declaring her claim to Native American ethnicity was never considered by the Harvard Law Facility. At every step of her remarkable rise in the legal profession, the people responsible for hiring her saw her as a white woman. Now, very, very good wording. At every step of her career in the legal profession, the people responsible for hiring her saw her as a white woman. Okay? That is actually interesting because according to Twitter, and take this with a grain of salt, for example, the claims are that she actually changed her ethnicity to white for the Native American at UPenn. She listed as a woman of color at Harvard. She identified as a racial minority in the Australian Directory as law teachers. And she resigned receipts in an Indian cookbook, Elizabeth Warren, Cherokee. So I've got that image on the screen, and obviously, yeah, you can see that there. So at the end of the day, it's funny how they list it to only people that saw her for hiring her. Okay, great, but what about all the other stuff? What about the government grants and the signing of the cookbooks and all the deals that she got because of that heritage? That is not coming in as hiring. That is something else, and that is something they have deliberately worded to go through and say, look, people hired her because she was white. They never claimed she was Indian. Great, but people aren't talking about that people are talking about her making money off this ancestry that she has, which ends up being about 0.1 to 1.56%. And at the end of the day, she has profited off that actual system or that actual claim. So, yeah, good wording there, Boston Globe. But, yeah, regardless. Harvard, however, Linsky admits Warren changed her ethnicity from white to Native American, both at University of Pennsylvania Law School, where she taught from 1987 to 1995, and at Harvard Law School, where she had a tenure starting in 1995. Assuming this DNA test is accurate, Warren can still make no claims to membership in a Cherokee tribe. The eastern band of the Cherokee Indians has a minimum threshold of 1/16 blood quantum, and the United Cherokee Band threshold is a quarter blood quantum. The Cherokee Nation does not have any minimum threshold for ancestry, but the membership it does require that the individual provide documents that connect you to a direct ancestor listed on one of the Dawes final rolls of citizens of the Cherokee Nation. The Dawes roll do not include any of Warren's ancestors. The Globe's front page headline, which Warren shared on social media to declare victory for herself, reads, "Warren reveals test confirming ancestry without accounting for these caveats." So, Warren's expert analysis, Busterman, might be mispronouncing, concludes that the vast majority of Warren's ancestry is European, but said evidence, quote, supports the existence of undermixed Native American ancestors, quote, close quotes. However, that's not proof of her specific claim to be part Cherokee. Much of Warren's claim in the American Indian heritage was debunked in 2014 when official documents, including a marriage certificate, appear to prove that Warren's story about her parents being forced to elope during her mother's Indian heritage was not true. In 2012, Warren told the Boston Globe, quote, "My father's family so objected to my mother's American Native heritage that my mother told me they had to elope. But that appears to be there appears to be a marriage certificate and contemptuous press accounts of Warren's parents having a medalist wedding in 1932, which would mean there was no elopement." Warren has also claimed that her great-great-great-grandmother, O.C. Sarah Smith, was part of American Indian. The Boston Globe, however, reports that Smith identifies as white in historical documents, which I'm not real fussed about because back in the day, you know, we're going back in like 1900s or whatever. That in itself could have been something to obviously help her get along in society. I'm not too fussed about that. The Globe adds that at the time, Indians faced discrimination, which is what I was basically just saying, and Smith would have had a strong incentive to call herself white if possible, which is what I've just said. According to Atlanta, the O.C. Sarah Smith died long before the Dawes rolls were drawn up, too far in the past to make Warren eligible for membership in the tribe, assuming Smith was Cherokee. Okay, so obviously apart from that, Elizabeth Warren's DNA results disqualify her from Cherokee tribe, which obviously we've just talked about, so that's pretty good. Elizabeth Warren has substantially less Native American blood than the average white American, according to study. So, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren released the results of a DNA test Monday, proving that she has statistically less Native American DNA than the average white person. Yeah, you got that right. She's whiter than white people and boys and girls. Warren's DNA tests are significant because of her extensive history of claiming Indian and Cherokee heritage in her political and professional career, which we've already gone through. Warren released the results of her DNA test, which shows her showing her to have potentially have 1 in 124,000, although I think it was actually 1 in 62. Yeah, 1 in 64. Sorry. So it's somewhere between 1 in 64 and 1 in 1,024. Somewhere between that gap. So yeah. Native American DNA dating back 6 to 10 generations. This sets the lowest bound of what Warren's Indian DNA at 0.098% and the highest to at 3%. The average European American has 0.18% of Native American DNA according to the comparative study by the Genetic Literacy Project. And that's quite a mouthful. So look, at the end of the day, obviously the Daily Caller here is comparing her worst results. Full fairness, she is anywhere from 3% to 0.01 something percent. So yeah, it's even at best, you know, like she's like 3%. You know, I suppose that counts for the high cheekbones. But yeah, with respect to European Americans, the percentage are much more different than the African American Latinos, with European American GMOs being at 98.6% European to 0.19% African to 0.18% Native American. In general, the numbers seem to agree with what one would expect given the history of American colonization by Europeans and their interactions with Africans and Native Americans. So Warren referred to the fingers as strong evidence for Native American heritage. Trump, who often mocked Warren as Pocahontas, said, "Who cares?" when asked about the findings Monday morning. And we'll get to that in a sec. So the Cherokee Nation blasts Elizabeth Warren DNA test as a mockery and inappropriate. Oof, funny how they seem to want to say that, didn't it? But let's get going. The Cherokee Nation issued a statement Monday declaring Senator Elizabeth Warren's DNA test as inappropriate and a mockery. On Monday, Warren released her DNA test results to the far-left Boston Globe Annie Linsky, who has already had to issue 2 humiliating corrections. Hoping to spin the results in the best way possible, Linsky botched the math on the DNA test findings naturally in Warren's favor. The truth is that even if you believe the results, Warren might have anywhere from 1 in 64 to 1 in 1,024 Native heritage, which means she has as much Native heritage as the average white American, which means her claims to be Cherokee has at best debunked by her own DNA test. The Cherokee Nation is having none of it. In a blistering statement, Cherokee Nation Secretary of State Chuck Harrison Jr. writes, "A DNA test is useless to determine tribal citizenship. Current DNA tests do not even distinguish whether a person's ancestry were indigenous to North or South America." This is an important fact, for especially true for Warren's DNA test, which did not include any American Indian DNA whatsoever to compare her results with. Buried in the Boston Globe story is this bombshell, quote, "To make up for the dearth of Native American DNA, Bustimates used samples from Mexico, Peru, and Colombia to stand in for Native American." In other words, all Warren's DNA test really proves is that she might be 1 in 64 or 1 in 1,024 Mexican, Peruvian, or Colombian. What's more, while some tribes were willing to accept 1/16 ancestry, they are not willing to do so through unreliable DNA tests. What they want to see is actually genealogy, and the truth is that Warren has no documentation to prove her family has ever had an American Indian in her family. Warren points to her great-great-great-grandmother, O.C. Sarah Smith, as part Cherokee, but all documentation of the time lists her as white. Now, like I said before, we've already talked about this, it could be listing her as white because of the fact that they're simply going through, and at the time they were discriminated against. If she could pass as white, I would have done that myself as well, just because of the fact that at the end of the day, yeah, you would have gone through, it would have made your life a lot easier. So if you were Indian at that time, then passing yourself off as white would have been a better option. Huskin continued, sovereign tribe nations set their own legal requirements for citizenship, and while DNA tests can be used to determine lineage, such as paternity to an individual, it's not evidence for tribal affliction. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to keep reading this article because as far as I'm concerned, this has already been debunked. So let's just keep moving on to the next article. Cherokee Nation, Elizabeth Warren's claim to tribe is inappropriate, which we've already talked about. Democrats turn on Elizabeth Warren over October surprise in DNA report. Yeah, they're not real happy about this, but let's keep going. Democrats on Monday reacted with dismay and disbelief to Senator Elizabeth Warren's release just 3 weeks before the midterm elections of a DNA test showing she may have traces of Native American ancestry. Jim Masona, Obama 2012 campaign manager, tweeted, quote, argue the substance all you want, but why 22 days before a crucial election where we must win the House and Senate to save America, why did @Sen Warren have to do an announcement now? Why can't Dems ever stay focused? I would say that she is being focused. She is focusing on her career, not yours. But regardless. David Axelrod, I might be mispronouncing that, a former President Obama chief campaign strategist and White House advisor, wrote, quote, at the risk I'm sure she considered, this elevates it. So he wrote, 100% she is running. She thinks that the Pocahontas crap is potentially a problem. She wants to dispose of it now, lest she be birthrized, and the risk is sure she considered, it elevates it. CNN contributor and political analyst Anna Nero, of a Republican who voted for Clinton in the 2016, wondered why Warren did not wait until after the midterms in order to keep the message focused. Quote, honestly though, shouldn't Elizabeth Warren have waited 3 weeks to release her DNA results? They are tight races all over the country. Seems to me the best use of this time any potential Democrat presidential nominee candidate right now is to help elect other Democrats. I would say these results were probably going to get leaked. And she just tried to release it because that would be my theory. My theory is someone at the DNA results lab knew who it was. They were going to leak it to Fox News. She knew about this. She found out about it, so she released it now. That would be my statement. But let's keep going. The release of Warren's DNA test, widely seen as a precursor to 2020 presidential run, was roundly mocked by conservative and criticized by some progressives. The test shows that Warren has between 0.9 and 1.6% Native American ancestry, and at the most, and according to the New York Times, researchers found that European Americans had a genealogy that were on average 98.6% European, 1.9% African, and 1.8% Native American. Which means she has anywhere from half to 1.6%. Like, if you're starting to claim that you got 1.6% Native American, like, can you really claim that as a race, as a mixed race? Like, how far diluted do you have to be before you sit there and say, I'm white? It's a real good question. Let's keep going. As Breitbart's journalist Joe Paxson summarizes, she may not be no more American than the average white American. This seems like a distraction, wrote Jeff Bader, former chief counsel to Senator Edward Kennedy. and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. A former Google employee summed it up this way: "I'm hard-pressed to find anything worse to talk about 3 weeks from a midterms than Bill Clinton's affairs or Elizabeth Warren's heritage." And probably accurate too. And the last story for the day, Elizabeth Warren, regarding this anyway, Elizabeth Warren's a meltdown in wake of DNA disaster. Senator Elizabeth Warren launched a bizarre Twitter rant late Monday afternoon following the disaster rollout of the DNA results that further debunked her decades-long claim to American Indian ancestry. Warren's thread of 20+ and counting tweets began at about 5:30 p.m. ET, when she attempted to both insult President Trump and defend herself. In her first tweet, and without any evidence, Warren made the outlandish claim that Trump, quote, makes creepy physical threats about me, which he doesn't, but regardless. The truth is that all Trump has ever done is ridiculed her false claims about being Cherokee, which is true. We all know why @real Donald Trump makes creepy physical threats about me, right? He's scared, Warren tweeted for her verified account. He's trying to do what he always does to women who scares him. He calls us names, attacks us personally, shrank us down to feel better about himself. It may be smooth his ego, but it won't work. Warren linked comments to Trump made on Monday ridicule Warren's DNA test after reporters suggested Trump owed her an apology, and an Inquisition president responded, I owe her. She owes the country an apology. What is her percentage of ancestry? 1 in 1,000, which isn't accurate. It's 1 in 64 or 1 in 1,024. So, look, technically he's always going to go for the highest amount, but this is where Trump sort of gets done for lying, quote, a little bit. Technically, look, he's lying with the truth. She is 1 in 1,024, but she's also 1 in 64, depending on the percentage. The actual numbers could be anywhere from 1 in 64, which I've already just said, sorry, to 1 in 1,024. Regardless, all this DNA test proves is that Warren has no more claim to Indian heritage than the average white American. Trump added that he would only pay off a bet made by her in Indian ancestry, quote, if I can test her physically, and that will not be something that I'll enjoy doing either. Trump once made an offer to pay $1 million to Warren's favorite charity if DNA tests proved that she was American Indian ancestry, which it still doesn't anyway, because the test results, which I've already said, actually used markers from Mexico and Peru and stuff like that. Trump needed not worry because of this DNA test proves that she is not Indian. What's more, the test did not even compare her DNA sample to American Indians. Okay, we've already talked about this. Buried in the Boston Globe bombshell is to make up for the dearth of Native American DNA. Baltimore's used a sample from Mexico, Peru, and Colombia to stand in for Native Americans. So all this just proves is that Warren might be 1/64th or 1,024 Mexican, Peruvian, or Colombian, which again makes her no different than the average white American. Warren's rambling tweets thread contained a link to the Boston Globe, a far-left outlet desperate to prove Warren from this Cherokee controversy, because obviously they want her to run. The Globe article argues that Warren's false claims of Indian ancestry had nothing to do with her success in academia, which is not entirely true. They have gone through and claimed that she did not get preferential treatment to go to the college because of this ancestry. This hasn't had anything to do with, like I said, the cookbook or anything that she's written. She has directly profited off being this, quote, American Indian, which mightn't even be true because, like I said, Mexican, Peruvian, or Colombian results were used in the DNA test. But let's keep going. Between 1987 and 1995, Warren identified as Native American while she was teaching law at the University of Pennsylvania Law School and Harvard they later used Warren's false Cherokee identity to brag about the school's racial diversity. And look, we're not going to keep going. It's just, yeah, it's weaponized autism at its worst. So look, at the end of the day, what's the wrap-up? What's the takeaway from all this? Look, I called this months ago, years ago, or whenever this first arrived. She's not Native American, guys, okay? At the very, very best, she is 164, 1024 Colombian, Peruvian, or whatever it was. So at the end of the day, look, yeah, and that's at the very best. Look, if someone is around 1.6 at the very best, or at the very least 0.1% native ancestry, which isn't even native ancestry, it's Colombian, Peruvian, and whatnot, then look, you know, no, you can't pass yourself off as Native American. It'd be like me claiming I'm Aboriginal because I don't even know, I haven't even done a 23andMe. But say I had 0.1% Aboriginal in me for some reason, just hypothetically. Like, you imagine me going through and claiming that I'm part Aboriginal? Holy shit, the left would lose their nut. Anybody, like Richard Spencer, actually has more mixed race in him than Elizabeth Warren does. Here's his 23andMe. Like, she's whiter than Richard Spencer, who leads the alt-right. Elizabeth Warren would actually be a better candidate to lead the alt-right than Richard Spencer. Can we put this to bed now? She's not Native American, not in any reasonable amount. And at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, she's been debunked. This is fake news. You are not Native American. Stop claiming that you are. But, you know, the left is desperate for their minority, so they'll keep going on about it. And this is really going to tank her 2020 presidential run. That's what this is gearing up for. She's gearing up for a 2020 presidential run, and this is going to land her in so much hot water. This is going to kill her presidential run because of this false claim. She would have been better off coming out earlier and admitting that she's not, or at least coming out now and saying, "Look, I'm sorry. I thought I actually was. It found out I'm not. I take it all back. I apologize." And just owning up to it. But that's not going to happen because they're desperate for their minority. I don't know, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on Elizabeth Warren? I'm sorry this video is so long. What are your thoughts on Elizabeth Warren? Do you think she's Native American? Do you think this 0.1 to 1.6% Native American ancestry, which is Peruvian and Colombian, do you think this matters? Do you think this actually makes her Native American? Or do you think that she's whiter than white? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If this video has been helpful, please smack a like. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great night and enjoy.